Thank you everyone so much for joining today's session. We're really excited to be chatting about how rental guarantees work. Sounds like a bit of a mundane topic, but it is very top of mind. Many of our clients are in the process of closing their properties, have gotten that final possession notice, and these are decisions that they need to make. So we wanted to dive into detail about how the rental guarantees actually do work, because there's a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of misinformation out there. So let's dive into it. That's what we're looking for today's webinar, going into all of the details about it. If you need any help, we are always here to help you evaluate if the rental guarantee makes sense for you. Each person's situation is different, and it might be right for some people, might be wrong for others. There is no right answer. But I would like you to meet us. We are the team at Remax Wealth Builders, founded by Alex Wilson, who unfortunately is not on the call today. And we really want to help grow your wealth and to minimize your stress. We believe that anyone can achieve generational wealth through the power of real estate. And what sometimes looks and feels like a complicated thing, investing in pre-construction real estate, possibly a few provinces over, we want to make that complicated, or what seems complicated, very, very easy for our clients. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this webinar today, to help our clients understand what is going on in their contracts and their purchases. My name is Kyle DeVigi. I'm a real estate broker licensed in Ontario and Alberta, but more importantly, I'm a real estate investor, just like my clients. I have 7 properties across Canada now. In previous careers, I had managed Lotto 649 and Lotto Max, but nowadays I help people become condo millionaires to build wealth through real estate. I've been featured on publications like CBC News, I've been on HGTV, and really excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Kyle. My name is Nish Dissanayaka, and I can speak to what Kyle just mentioned. He helped me become a condo millionaire as well, him and Alex. So I'm a testament to following that path. I've been a real estate investor since 2006, and excited to share that 7 of those properties are pre-construction properties in Calgary, which I started building in 2021. I also have 2 properties here in Toronto, and currently 3 out of the 7 properties in Calgary are tenanted. I have the 4th coming up at the end of August, so I'm all in with the rental guarantee versus opting out situation. So we'll be talking about that as well. I've been a licensed real estate agent since November of 2020, licensed both in Alberta and in Ontario. And a bit of a soapbox moment here. I've been recognized in the 1% of realtors for the last 3 years. For overall sales, and that's out of over 73,000 agents in the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. That extra R always throws me off, but that's what TREB stands for. And in terms of my Calgary success, selling Calgary for about 3 years, and since that time have sold well over 200 Calgary investment properties. Prior to my time as a real estate agent, I was the director of sales and operations for an entertainment company. I was in that role, or in that company, for 22 years, the last half of those in that position. What I was able to do with my real estate portfolio was pretty much looking at the Calgary market and utilizing the incentives and making the proper decisions. I was able to take a real estate portfolio and more than quadruple it in the span of 18 months. So we generally talk about these in another webinar that we do, but again, showing you from our experience where we stand with investing in Calgary. So let's talk about a rental guarantee. That's why we're all here. So a rental guarantee, for those that are somewhat familiar or may not know what it is whatsoever, it's a promise by the developer to pay you, the investor, as an incentive, a set amount of rent monthly for the duration of your incentive period. Now that can be 1, 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the incentive that you have and the project that you bought into. And this promise is really a way for the developer to, well, number one, sell their properties, because it adds a layer of confidence for the investor, especially those that don't live in the city. Many of the investors live outside of province up until most recently, where we've seen a ton of Calgary buyers. But getting back to the original point, many people aren't able to drive to the properties in 30 minutes. So this really adds a layer of security for their investment. And it also allows them to, invest with confidence, because you know that many of what you would typically do to secure a tenant, to manage the tenant, all those elements are taken care of with the rental guarantee program. So Kyle will get into some of the finer points of that, but that's generally a high level view of what the rental guarantee is. And the reason why I guess it's offered, Kyle, I think is the next slide. Yeah, the reason why the rental guarantee is offered to reinforce the fact that it adds a layer of security for the investor, so they don't need to worry about their place being vacant or vacant for multiple months and not collecting revenue. This is offered as a way to eliminate some of those mental obstacles that people can have. The rental guarantee program started, I want to say 2020. That's generally where we saw most developers, especially out in Alberta, advertising the rental guarantee, because the rental market was much different back then. Today, I believe it's only Truman Homes, as far as I know, that offers a rental guarantee in the Calgary market, even though the real estate market in the rental space is on fire. Literally, it is burning up. And that's simply because of the increase in the population, the shortage of supply. So people are clamoring to live in properties like this. So it's not necessarily something that is utilized all the time, but it does add a layer of protection for investors, and it gives everyone a peace of mind.
Absolutely. So the devil is always in the details. How do these rental guarantee programs work? Well, it can make the experience completely hassle-free for you. Nish and I, we're both remote investors. Majority of our clients are out of province. They're not there to babysit their property, to find tenants, or worry about anything. So this allows you to go into a lease back from the developer, meaning Truman Homes actually rents the unit back from you. You're getting paid by the developer every single month. And that's how they guarantee the rent. So even if the unit's empty, you're getting that rent check every single month. Now, in most cases, it's actually at the end of the month, not at the beginning like you traditionally get. So something to be aware of, manage your cash flows. Now, this is nice because it also comes with many different services. Number one is they're going to rent the unit out. So they have a property management company called Empire 81. We'll talk a little bit more about them. And they're going to be advertising the property for rent. Now, in Calgary and Alberta in general, most of the properties are rented by property management companies, not by real estate agents like in many other provinces like Ontario and BC. The biggest rental site out there by far is rentfaster.ca. And that's likely where these companies are going to find the tenants. Not posting on Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, anything like that. You want good AAA quality tenants. So that's where the next part comes in, is tenant screening. This is the number one way to protect your investment. It is easy to say no to a tenant up front. It is difficult to get them out, once they're in the property, even in Calgary. Now, if they're not paying, a lot more easy to evict tenants who aren't paying rent, but still you have to go through the hassle. So better to say no to a tenant who's not qualified or you don't think is a good fit to be living in your property. So this comes with full tenant screening by professional property management company Empire 81. And in Alberta, property management companies need to be accredited. They need to be licensed by the Real Estate Council of Alberta. So you are getting a very high level of service, probably higher than you might get from many real estate agents out there as well. So they're also going to handle all of the paperwork. That's going to include sign the lease up front. That's going to include any lease renewals, any notices, anything like that. Documentation of the security deposits. Yes, you can charge a security deposit in Alberta. Can't do that in Ontario. You can charge them a pet deposit, extra pet rental amount as well. Everything needs to be properly documented though, and they're going to be handling all of this for you. They're also taking on all of the communication with the tenant, to give them appropriate notice if anything happens. Midnight, there's a leak, you're not getting that phone call. It's the property management company that is getting that. So that alone can provide invaluable service because Alberta is 2 hours behind Ontario as well, 1 hour ahead of BC. So depending where you are, you could be getting calls at a time when you're trying to sleep or you're with your family. So that is making it a completely passive investment for you. They're the ones taking it on and handling it. Also, compliance. They're making sure that all of the landlord and tenant rules are being followed. I'm based in Ontario, even. I don't know all the landlord tenant rules. I'm not an expert in it. So why not give it to someone that is in the business of this, lives and breathes this every single day to make sure that all of the rules are being followed and you're compliant with all the legislation out there. And as well, maintenance. If there's anything that goes wrong, for condos, typically it's pretty easy. You have four walls, some appliances inside. Sometimes there might be a plumbing clog. Locks, might have to be changed, something like that. It's going to be the property management company coordinating all of that on your behalf, giving the tenant the appropriate notice to access the property and everything along with that. Now, you still have to pay for the repair and the services being rendered, but it's the property management company organizing all of that on your behalf. Now, everyone's asking though, what rent do I get? How does this work? Nish, let's dive into detail for everyone here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of what you get for rent, you have a set amount that you're going to get from the developer. And I want to preface this by saying any incentive that the developer offers, whether it's a rental guarantee, the free property management, it is contingent on the investor living up to their investment and their financial obligations. So, if you delay your closing or you're extremely late on your deposits, the developer does have the right to cancel the rental guarantee and the free property management. So please be aware of that. Make sure you stick to the dates and the obligations that you have to make the payments. Very important. So getting back to what you get in terms of the rent, you can either get a flat rate and again, this is all on the purchase agreement. You'll either get a flat rate for the unit type that you purchase, or you might be getting a percentage of your purchase price. Typically, the latter, where you get a percentage, are on the high-rise condos simply because you might be buying a similar unit on a lower floor, and then someone 30 floors higher than you buys the same unit, but their cost is significantly more than yours simply because of the levels. Their rental guarantee will pay out proportionate to their purchase price. So that's typically what the two different options are in terms of what you get. And as Kyle mentioned, when you are in a rental guarantee program, you are coupled with free property management, which is also provided by the developer by way of Empire 81. And what you get at the end of the month will include your cost minus any expenses that came out of pocket, meaning things that aren't necessarily covered by your insurance and the tenant insurance, like, a plumbing issue or, some small fixing that they had to do to ensure that the unit was, livable. So, but all the major ones are covered by either the insurance or by the warranty. So your rental guarantee is the set amount minus any minor expenses, but those are generally far and few in between.
And we just had a question come in, and this is a good question. How about repairs that are covered by the new home warranty program in Alberta? Will the property manager take care of this? So it's the developer that's responsible for fixing these repairs. Say there's paint touch-ups that are required, there's a vent cover missing, anything that you can imagine. It's the responsibility of the developer to fix. Now, the property manager will help coordinate the appropriate notices to the tenant, because developer will say, okay, on this day, I'm coming in to address the deficiencies. There's no expense to that. And really, appropriate notice just needs to be given to the tenant. So property manager will help coordinate those on your behalf.
And with the Alberta New Home Warranty Program, the first year workmanship on things like that are covered anyway. So that's generally what most people are asking about, those small fixes. It's covered by the warranty by way of the property manager. And I just want to add answer one quick question. You will get that rental guarantee whether the unit has a tenant in there or not. It's a guaranteed amount. So whether it takes them 2 weeks to find a tenant, or they find a tenant on the same day, or make 2 months to find a tenant, irrespective, you are going to get paid your set amount at the designated time.
Yeah, and that's perhaps one of the biggest benefits of the rental guarantee program, because the developer is able to advertise the units and do showings and get a tenant in there for the first day of closing. If you close on the property, you don't get the keys until closing, which means you're likely going to have a vacant property for, a couple weeks, 30 days, something like that, while, pictures are taken, it's posted, there's showings done, and then a tenant finally moves in. So with the rental guarantee, there's no vacancy even from the beginning. And with a new building, there could be dozens of units coming available all at once. We see this happen in Toronto all the time. It takes a little bit of time for all of those units to be absorbed. And with the rental guarantee program, you completely avoid all of that. It becomes the developer's problem to make sure they can find a good quality tenant to put in there. Now, they're not just going to put any random Joe off the street. They want to make sure that, number one, they're going to be a good tenant and they're going to pay their rent, because it's the developer that's on the hook if they don't. But also, they want to make sure that the tenant isn't damaging the property or causing any issues to the building or to the other residents in the building, because it's their property management company that has to deal with it as well. So developers absolutely still incentivized to get a AAA good tenant in there that they're not going to have any issues or hassle with.
Yeah, great point, Kyle. That's one that is most often overlooked. If someone decides to take on the responsibility of finding a tenant themselves, they just simply want to put someone in right away so they don't absorb that first month of the mortgage payment without getting the income. And then you might compromise on the quality of tenant. They don't do that. They aren't going to inherit a problematic tenant because they're the ones that are going to be responsible for managing them. So that's an important element to factor in when you make that decision on which way to go. We also get some really relevant questions about what happens if the rent is higher than what the rental guarantee is. And in most cases, you can pretty much count on the market rent, especially given what's happening in Calgary right now, to be higher, and in some cases significantly higher than what your rental guarantee number looked like when you signed the contract. Now, this unfortunately does not mean that you get the market value in terms of what the property management company has secured for the tenant. You only get the amount that's on your contract, because at the end of the day, the developer, they're the ones taking the risk. If there's a month before they find somebody or 2 months, you still get paid. You're not going to get paid, and they need to absorb that cost. And God forbid, I don't ever see this happening, but let's say the market rent drops, and it goes well below your rental guarantee. They're not going to pay you less. They'll absorb that loss. So they are taking the risk, but also benefiting from the reward. So definitely it is something to keep in mind if you are pondering if you should cancel opting out or sticking with the rental guarantee. Did I cover this part already? I think I did.
So this is during the term. So after the first
right.
year, say the rent continues to go up.
Yeah, the rent continues to go up because your contract is, for a set number of years, unless you only have 1 year. If you have a 2, 3, or 4 year rental guarantee, irrespective of how much extra rent the property management company is able to get from the tenant at the renewal of their lease, or if they get a new tenant in place, you're only getting the rental guarantee amount for the set number of months that you are contracted to. How much rent do I get if the unit is empty? So this is another question that we briefly answered, but again, because it is a rental guarantee, irrespective of how long it takes for the property management company to get you a tenant, whether it's 3 days in advance or 2 months after, you still get paid. There are times, and this is also in the contract, that if the property is sitting empty for more than 60, 90 days, they may have a conversation with you to figure out what you want to do. But in most cases, and again, this is the rental guarantee, not the rental assurance, because there are two things. I know that some people had questions about the rental assurance as well, but the rental guarantee guarantees you that option to stay with them and then secure the set amount for the duration of the term.
And if you're going to be living in the property yourself, you cannot get the rental guarantee amount.
You
I've
can't
had
live in
that.
your property for free. Yeah.
You can't. You cannot intentionally leave it empty as well. The developer is going to actively try to rent that out and to mitigate the amount of rent that they're ultimately paying you. You can't double dip on any other programs. You can't Airbnb it and get the rental guarantee, nothing like that. You're either in or you're out of the rental guarantee. So who is going to manage the unit? And I touched on this a little bit before. For all of Truman's rental guarantee programs, it's a property management company called Empire 81. This is essentially a subsidiary of Truman. And Truman has a significant property management portfolio. They do many purpose-built rentals in Calgary that are only rentals. They aren't condos. They aren't sold afterwards. And Empire 81 is responsible for managing those buildings. The rental guarantees that they're extending as part of purchase incentives are also falling under that program as well. So it's going to be this company that manages hundreds, if not thousands of units in Calgary, very, very experienced, is going to be managing your unit on your behalf. So lots of experience there as well. If you decide to opt out of the program, then we have amazing relationships with local property management companies that can help you manage the unit as well. And we've negotiated special discounts for our clients as well. So one of the perks of working with us. These are tried and tested. Our clients have been very, very happy with these people because at the end of the day, if you're having bad experiences based on someone that we're recommending, that's an awful situation. So you are going to get the red carpet treatment from anyone that we're referring to you. But under the rental guarantee, it is all Empire 81. After the rental guarantee is over, whether that's 1, 2, 3, however many years, you are kicked out of the program. You cannot continue with Empire 81. But there is a handover process. The tenant will be handed over to you, and then you would just need to hire your own property management company to pick up where they are leaving off. Very simple and straightforward if the tenant decides to stay, which very often they do. So all of that sounds great, but it sounds like there are some caps on the program. And in many cases, properties that were purchased, 2, 3 years ago have rental guarantees that are $300, $400, $500 under the fair market value today. Nish can talk about this. He has some really good experiences related around that. I myself have rental guarantees hundreds under the fair market value. So yes, you can opt out. If you are going to opt out, do it as early as possible. Because if you leave it too late, we're often seeing penalties that you have to pay of 1, 2, 3, even 4 months of the rental guarantee amount. That means if the rental guarantee is $2,000 a month, you could be paying $6,000 to $8,000 to get out of the rental guarantee. So this is analysis that Nish and I both do for all of our clients to see, hey, does it make sense from a financial perspective to opt out of the rental guarantee? You would only really do it if you can rent it for significantly more. So much more that you were going to cover the cost of the property management when you have to do it yourself, renting it out yourself, any extra lease renewals, allowing for some vacancy up front as well. If you're still financially better off, then it could make sense for you to opt out of the program. I have many clients that are like, yeah, it's $100 more. I don't care. I want to make this as simple and easy as possible, which is a great reason. There's no right or wrong answer here. To try and make a decision on, say, $25 a month, what's the right option? It's more based on your personal situation. But Nish and I will help you go through that evaluation to determine which is the best course of action for you. And if you decide that you do want to opt out, it's just a simple email, then an amendment is done that essentially takes you out of the rental guarantee program. The best time to do this is as early as humanly possible, because then there's a good chance that there won't be any fee or penalty to do this. Once the rental guarantee starts, then there's definitely going to be a penalty to break it. That includes if you want to get out. That includes if rents have gone up so much more and you want to realize the market rent. That includes if you want to sell it as well, or if you want to live in the property. If you have plans to sell it or to live in it, get out of the rental guarantee as soon as possible to make sure you're not having to pay any fees or penalties around that.
Yeah, great points, Kyle. Before we kind of get into some of the finer points and share our personal experiences, because we have a ton to share with you, there are some questions that maybe we can address, and then we can get into the details about opting out and our experiences. Kyle, does that sound good? Perfect. So let's go to our Q&A. Let's make sure we didn't miss anything. Question that we had. The rental guarantee, do we have any control over the price they lease it out for, ensuring it's not too high to try to have a sustainable rental market? So keep in mind, number one, that the goal of the property management company is to secure a AAA tenant at market rate. So they want to maximize the opportunities available in the market. The reason they're not going to set prices well beyond what the market can sustain is they're not going to get the tenant, right? So they're gonna market it properly. And in terms of being able to increase the rent, so you haven't hit that ceiling too quickly, the way the Alberta market and specifically the Calgary market is going with the population growth, the lack of housing, and all the other elements that make Calgary a bullish investment, they will be able to position themselves. And you, if you decide to take over, you'll be able to increase the rent at market value. There aren't any rent controls in Alberta. This is something that we covered in our previous webinar. So you can set your new lease term, whether it's a new tenant or if it's the existing tenant going into their 13th month, which would be the first month of their new lease period, you can set that rate based on what the market is currently able to sustain. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Adrian. But if it doesn't, feel free to add more questions in the chat. Now let's go back to the ones that we have not had a chance to answer yet. Here's one that we get all the time. Does the rental guarantee cover the mortgage payment with interest rate if the interest rates are somehow higher than they are? So right now, we know that we're dealing with a market where interest rates are at record highs, things we haven't seen for nearly 2 decades. When the rental guarantee numbers were published as part of the incentive package, the interest rates were probably in the mid to high twos. So it was a cash flow positive investment with the rental guarantee. Today, depending on your financial situation, how you're purchasing the property, whether it's personally or through a corporation, that will impact the interest rate that you can secure for the property. So in most cases, if you stick with the rental guarantee and you have a generally high interest rate, you may not be able to be cash flow positive. You might be able to be cash flow neutral, but when you factor some of the costs that you have to incur, such as the taxes, your property taxes, the landlord insurance, and the utilities, because owners are responsible to pay the utilities with the rental guarantee program. Condos, it's just the electricity, but when we look at townhouses, you're paying for the gas, water, and electricity, so those numbers can be high. So chances are you aren't going to be cash flow positive with the rental guarantee, and this might be one of the determining criteria that you choose to either stay in the rental guarantee program or to opt out. The other question is, I don't have a rental guarantee, but I do have a property management company. Are they just as incentivized to find a tenant for me? Yeah, absolutely, because the property management companies only get paid when they have secured a tenant for you, because there generally is an upfront cost to secure a tenant. It's a fraction of what you would pay in more expensive markets like Ontario, Toronto specifically, where you're giving away one full month's rent, which is split between the tenant's agent and the brokerage that the property management company runs out of. We have great partners, and the price, your cost to secure a tenant is a fraction of that, and we can kind of talk offline about the different options. And then the property management company gets a percentage of the market rent, or sorry, of the rent that they're collecting for the tenant. So yes, they are incentivized to find you a tenant. They're incentivized to find you a tenant that is willing to pay market rate. And just like Empire 81, they are incentivized to find you a AAA tenant because they're not going to want to deal with headaches.
Exactly. And that's why you want to be working with a really good property management company as well, someone that knows the local market, is doing a lot of business, because that's their job, is to find their clients a tenant. And we've had really good experiences with some of ours. I just had a client downtown, new property came up, went on the market, rented in a day and a half for higher than a lot of the other units that were even listed and that have been sitting on the market. So working with a really good property management company, just like a really good real estate agent when buying your investment property, is the best way to secure your investment. Absolutely, they're incentivized to do a good job because they want that repeat business. They want to make money too. Next question is, but can't we set a ceiling for the rental guarantee? No. Something to keep in mind, if you're going into the rental guarantee program, you are giving up all control of your unit essentially, but you are getting guaranteed rent and assurance from the developer for that. So it's the developer that is going to be setting the rates that they're renting out the properties, and it's going to be at whatever the market rate is, because they can't make up the market. They need to be offering competitive rates. But you're also not getting approval of the tenants being put in there under the rental guarantee program as well. It's the developer taking on the risk of it, and you as the landlord no longer get to approve the tenants being placed there. So one of the major reasons some of my clients are opting out is because they want that control. They want that approval. They're not comfortable having someone in the tenant that they haven't vetted personally themselves. So keep that in mind. But no, there's no way to set a ceiling. Developer's going to rent it out for whatever the market rate is at that time.
And Kyle, just want to quickly add the risk of inheriting a tenant that the developer puts in. The risk is much lower than if you were dealing with a different market where the landlord and tenant board rules weren't the same as in Alberta. And that's because, just say you have a tenant that isn't your ideal tenant type and they're problematic, whatever, you don't have or they don't have the option to go month to month after their term is done. You can actually end the contract because Alberta has fixed term leases. And let's say, as an example, you have a 2-year rental guarantee with the property that you bought, and you know that this tenant has been giving some issues to the property management company. 60 days before that 2-year term is up with that tenant, you can provide them with notice to terminate the contract. And it doesn't have to be because you're moving in or a family member is moving in or because you're selling it. It can be as simple as you want to change the tenant because you're not excited about who you will inherit once you take over managing that property, or once you end the free property management and rental guarantee incentive with the developer. So you do have way more rights that are executable and that are actioned by the city of Calgary and the province of Alberta. So it is a different level of risk when you're dealing with tenants over there versus places like, BC, Ontario, or Montreal, Quebec, sorry.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nish. The landlord tenant rules are much more balanced, and they actually enforce the rules out there as well. So it's night and day to be a landlord in Alberta compared to jurisdictions like Ontario and BC. So next question is, can you guys help with assignment? No, don't sell on assignment. We have seen clients starting to walk away from deposits, sort of thing. There is no assignment market in Calgary like there is in Ontario and BC. So there are many people that bought several years ago. Their life situations have changed. They're in desperate situations. And the only people buying assignments are investors if they can get an immediate profit. So because the closing costs are so low in Alberta, you're looking at about $2,000 on the high end, including legal fees. You are always better off to close it and just immediately list it for sale if you don't want to keep it. Even if you have to do private money, something like that, it still makes financial sense for every case that I've worked through for my clients. Better yet, buy and hold over the long term, because if you hold it for at least a year, the profit becomes taxed as a capital gain instead of as income. So there could be significant tax benefits to holding on to real estate. And you make the most amount of wealth by buying and holding over the long term, not quickly flipping and selling.
Exactly. There was another tax-related question. This question is about the way you recognize income through the rental guarantee if you live in Ontario and you're getting this income from Alberta, truly, this is a question that you want to consult a tax expert on because there's so many moving parts, whether you buy it personally, whether you buy it as a corporation. There's just, there's too many variables to provide a yes or no answer. So we can help set you up with the right people if you need that. But I don't think at this point, neither Kyle or I are in a position to answer this 100% accurately, and don't want to set you going down the wrong path.
Yeah, absolutely. For any tax stuff, contact an accountant. However, in general, any income that you're earning in Alberta is returned to your province of residence. So that means if you're in Ontario, you'll be taxed on it as if that income was made in Ontario. You won't be taxed as a developer unless you are a developer, but if you're buying pre-construction condo and closing it, that's just rental income tax as an individual or under your corporation, depending on how you own it. And then can you
Sorry.
repeat what monthly fees we have to pay under the rental guarantee? You have to pay all the fees. So all the fees of home ownership and an investment property, you need to pay. That includes your mortgage. So the principal and the interest repayments, your property taxes, any condo or maintenance fees that might apply, including HOA fees if there's one for the neighborhood, very rare in Calgary. Your landlord insurance, and then often for rental guarantees, you have to pay the utilities as well. But check your contract because some rental guarantees are different from others, but it is typically included. For condos, the utilities would just be hydro or the electricity. For the townhomes and houses, typically it's the electricity as well as gas, garbage removal, water, waste. Anything else I'm missing?
No,
I
that's
think
it.
that's it.
Maybe I guess landscaping and snow removal. If it's a freehold property, you do want to factor that into the cost, whether you are giving the tenant a discount to take care of that. But ultimately, keep in mind the homeowner is liable if something goes sideways. So many times, people that have bought freeholds, they generally hire a company to take care of that stuff simply because they don't want to put that back onto the tenant. But that is something that you can do if you choose to. But as Kyle said, it's pretty much all costs that you would have to pay. You want to try to work as much of those costs into your rent if you are not in the rental guarantee program and renting it out yourself. But through the rental guarantee program, no, those costs are all paid by the owner.
All right, so
Beautiful.
I
So
think
no, great questions.
I think we've covered everyone that received. Any other questions from the audience that we can help with?
Okay, we can
Okay.
maybe dig into the opting out and what that kind of looks like, Kyle.
One just came in. Sorry, I missed it, but what
Oh.
about vacant home tax? There is none in Alberta, right?
Vacant. No, I haven't received any notices for the Alberta properties. And if you stick with the rental guarantee, your tenant is the developer anyways. So even if they impose that in Alberta, if you're with the rental guarantee, you have a tenant from day one.
Yep. The property is not vacant. And even when you're trying to rent it out as well, you're actively trying to rent it, it still isn't vacant either.
Ooh, we got a few more. They're just coming in.
All right. I see that Empire 81 reviews are a bit concerning. Should we be concerned about that? I too have rental guarantee. I have 2-year property management. So when you're a property manager, it is really hard to keep all of the tenants happy because you're inevitably gonna upset some of them. You're doing things that they may not agree with, like evicting them when they're not paying their rent. So it is really, really hard to keep a very high rating for a property management company on sites like, like Google, Yelp, those sorts of areas. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Take it with a grain of salt, especially where the reviews are coming from, if they're tenant versus landlord based. And if you're not comfortable with those reviews, then opt out and hire the property management company that you are. You have full control in doing that. You would just
Chances are,
have to opt out of the rental guarantee.
but to Kyle's point, chances are those property management companies are also not going to have 5-star reviews because there's people that love property management companies don't typically leave a ton of reviews, but people that dislike property management companies will go above and beyond the regular scope of review posting to let other people know how badly they were treated, even though in most cases they just weren't following the obligations and the commitments. And funny thing is, once we've seen more people migrate from other provinces where the landlord and tenant rules were completely different, going into a province like Alberta where the rules are actually fair, you're going to have way more tenants being or feeling entitled to what they were able to get away with in these other places. And in Alberta, you simply can't. You simply don't have those same latitudes to, to take advantage of your landlord. It's just not possible.
Another question came in. If Truman is offering rental guarantees and free condo fees, would that cover the utilities as well? This is where it's very situational. If you take a project like Lincoln that has the most generous rental guarantee we have ever seen, includes free property management, guarantees you no vacancy, has free condo fees, these are cash flow positive at nearly a 6% mortgage rate because all the incentives for 3 years until 2031. So some of these incentives are incredible. And yes, they can absolutely make them cash flow positive. For other projects that we've seen, the rental guarantee is below the fair market rent in that area today. So it makes zero sense to be taking those rental guarantees. Truman has bumped them up a lot because rents have gone up so much. They're trying to be more competitive, trying to add a lot of value there, but it is very situational. And that's where Nish and I can help you determine which ones are really, really valuable, or yeah, you're probably not going to take this guarantee. But in some of them, absolutely, they will be cash flow positive with all the incentives.
Great point.
And the next one, the underused housing tax in Alberta applies to foreign national owners of housing in Canada. Okay. There's a foreign buyer ban federally across Canada anyways, so foreign nationals can't buy in Canada unless they meet some of the qualification criteria. I haven't worked with any of these sorts of individuals as well. They've always been either a Canadian citizen or permanent resident or meet the qualifications, here on work permits, filing their taxes, the other requirements to be able to avoid the federal ban.
Yeah, and they typically are buying to live in as well, as opposed to simply rent it out if they're here. Like the students, they're typically wanting to live there. So fantastic. So in terms of our experience, right now, the 3 properties that I personally have, I decided to opt out of the rental guarantee for all 3. And again, my criteria for the decisions I made might be completely different to yours. I simply saw, which is one of the first points that we made, the rental market was so far above and beyond what the rental guarantee was. I was willing to take the risk of opting out because I knew that even if I had 1 month where my property was vacant before I secured a tenant, that I would be able to make up the difference. And in addition to the financial reasoning, it's also the flexibility. Let's say that I wanted to sell my property after the first year. Now I'm not obligated to another year, 2, 3 years of the rental guarantee program to sell my property. And if I do decide to do so, I'm paying upwards of 4 months of the rental guarantee gross amount to break that contract with the property management company, and potentially even more money that I'll have to pay the existing tenant if they've signed a different or a new lease to get them out so I can sell the property. Because, at the end of the day, if I'm selling a property, I'm going to do it after 1 year at the very earliest to not pay the income tax and to get the capital gains exemption. And of course, properties that are vacant that you can stage, advertise, and really, bring to the market to show itself in the best light will sell for a higher price. And I felt that with the rental guarantee with the existing properties, which were right now, there's 2 townhouses and a condo, and I have another townhouse coming up in August. It simply didn't make sense. The costs would not have justified me staying in the rental guarantee program. But this is where Kyle and I do this every day. We look at the numbers, we look at the pros and cons, and we mitigate the risks that we're taking by doing a full analysis on the project. We've done that for our upcoming project, Aberdeen Townhome, that's where people are taking possession starting as early as next month, all the way until the end of August. And then we also have the Lockwood project that many of you that are on this webinar have bought into. So we were able to get that information out to you in a timely manner to help you make that decision. And happy to have additional conversations and also provide this webinar recording as a link so you can get a refresher before making that choice.
Absolutely. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So if anything comes up, as you sit on this, think about it more, feel free to get in touch with us. If you have a closing coming up soon as well, we're happy to walk you through what that might look like, what current market rents are in the area. Does it make sense to opt out? And again, it's completely up to you. If you want to make this a passive investment, hands off, nothing wrong with taking the rental guarantee. If you want to try and maximize the value of your property, have complete control about who's going in there and maximum flexibility, might make sense to opt out of the program.
Yep.
So
100%.
If you have any questions, we are here to help. So thank you so much for joining today. We know your time is very valuable. We hope this has been insightful. This session has been recorded, so we will send out a copy of it as well if you want to rewatch it again or have any other questions. Otherwise, thank you so much, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful remainder to your week. Thanks, Kyle.
Take care.